Welcome to the Board Wrap-Up Show for Ponca City Public Schools. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, and this is our monthly visit with Shelley Arrott, Superintendent of Ponca City Public Schools, as we recap this month's Board of Education meeting. And it was the October Board of Education meeting. And first of all, before we get started, big sigh of relief, very happy, and congratulations to the entire district for the big bond election passage, and a lot of good things are already starting to happen.
That's right. On October 12th, the historic bond issue passed at 81% approval. So that was outstanding. I think that speaks a lot for our community during a time of a global pandemic and so much political unrest. And I know some people were for and some people were against, but I will tell you what, this community steps up for our school. And it's not about me, and it's not about the school board, and it's not about the teachers. It's about the kids of this district and the different opportunities that are available for kids thanks to our community. And Sean, that goes to academics, safety, extracurriculars, but in times of need, our community stands up and they know that whatever we can do for our students to enhance their lives in the future will only enhance this community. So I have to say a big thank you to the community of Ponca City.
Yeah, certainly. 81%, that's incredible. Now, if you're interested in reading about those projects that are on the horizon that will be happening over the next 2.5, 3 years, you can go to Ponca City Public Schools on Facebook. You can read about it there. You can also go to pcps.us. Now, let's talk about the October Board of Education meeting. And the Board of Education meeting started with honoring and recognizing the Certified Employee of the Month, the Support Employee of the Month, and the Friend of Education. This is something that I know the board always looks forward to, and
we do.
It's perfect.
And Sean, this was our first time to have the real live guests at our board meeting in over 18 months.
Yeah.
So we actually had the recipients in the room, and we could honor them and their families, and it was a great sense of normalcy. So our Certified Employee of the Month was Jamie Evans. She is our senior counselor at the high school, and she does a fabulous job, and so we were super honored to recognize Jamie. And then our Friend of Education was, let me go back to our Support Employee of the Month. That's someone who's not a teacher, who doesn't have a certification with the state of Oklahoma, was Kyle Moberly. And Kyle is our district mechanic, and he works on our buses and any of our school vehicles, and he goes above and beyond, and we've been shorthanded in that division, and Kyle has really stepped up, and he drives if he needs to too. So we were excited to honor Kyle and his family. And then our Friend of Education was Bowers Trucking, and Bowers really stepped up for us this summer when we were trying to get in our science textbooks with shipping issues. That was a problem. And with science, you can imagine all kinds of manipulatives that we had. I think we had over 32 pallets of science equipment that needed to get here. And the textbook dispensary would deliver at a cost of like about $16,000.
Oh.
And we just couldn't afford that. And Bowers Trucking stepped up and went and got our science materials and delivered
Wow.
those. So kudos to them. Definite true Friend of Education.
Fantastic. That is incredible support for Ponca City Public Schools. The annual safety presentation.
Yes.
This is a once a year
It
event.
is. It's something that's required once a year, and we want to keep our board and our public informed on what we're doing for safety. And Brett is retiring. Brett Smith, our current executive director of operations, on November 1. So Adam Leeming, our intern, presented that report and talked about what all we're doing for safety. It's just amazing what all we do from our secure entrances to our drills, to our professional development, to our practices. That's required by the state. We have to practice tornado drills, lockdown drills, fire drills, intruder on campus drills. And as you know, Sean, we had an event earlier this year. It was a lockdown, not an intruder on campus. But our students knew what to do, our teachers knew what to do, and it's because of this constant safety practices. And And with our bond issue, we are upgrading some of our safety facilities, safety requirements, and safety needs that we have at our sites. But if you look around at our district, every one of our schools have a secure entrance. The only entrance that is not bullet resistant glass is at West, but this bond issue will take care of that. Washington was our latest secure entrance where people have to be buzzed in to go in. You know, our secure corridor between the Hal and the Fine Arts Building. And we actually have a security guard at the front entrance at Poe High. Not because we're worried about our kids, but we're worried about anybody who might come in. And they will not let you in if you do not have a PCPS badge or your driver's license. So, and what I can tell you with safety, it never ends. You never arrive with safety. I mean, we fight things like internet safety, social media safety, and so there's lots of trainings that go into that, and it's truly not just the school's responsibility, it's all of our responsibility to make sure that our kids are safe.
And it changes. I mean, it's so different than it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years
Constantly.
ago.
Constantly,
I mean,
right.
Especially
right.
with the internet.
I remember when I didn't even have a cell phone. That
Right.
wasn't that long ago.
Right.
I mean,
that's true.
So
the bond presentation. Now, I'm assuming that this was a pretty big part of the meeting. Was it?
not really. It was just a short presentation.
Okay.
Adam and I went out and we presented at every school. It was a 45-minute to an hour presentation. Any civic group, we had that presentation down to a T, and we blitzed it that last month. But some of our board members had never seen the presentation. We didn't do the 45-minute presentation, but we just went over the 34 bond projects. Well, they're not all bond projects.
Right.
Some are CARES projects
right.
because we have this unique opportunity this year because
Sure.
of our CARES funds, about $60 million in projects, and we're doing some projects that aren't even related to bond or not even related to CARES, because back in the late 90s, when Dr. White vowed to the community that we would keep our mill levies at 22 mills, that's even, that means our taxes don't go up and our taxes don't go down.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small price to pay to take care of our kids, to make sure they're safe, make sure they're educated and prepared to be college and career ready, to provide those mental health resources or those extracurricular activities. So we are also doing some work at the ag barn. We have 150 kids in ag, and we will leverage our building funds. So we talked about all the 34 projects just so our board would know what was going on and the public would know what was going on. But as you said, it is on our Facebook page, it is on our website, and as projects get done and when the timeline comes up, Christy, our public information coordinator, will let the public know what we're working on and what's completed and what's still to go.
Well, there's already activity involved in demolition, and I know that during the board meeting, we'll talk about this here in a moment. Sober Brothers, the contract was awarded for demolition of some really historic buildings in our community. I know some people have spoken up and said, "Hey, that's our memories," but this is progress. But you understand that too.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And those are gorgeous buildings.
They are.
Really are in history of Ponca City. But the board approved on Monday night a contract with Sober Brothers to begin the demolition should the bond issue pass. So there was one day between the board meeting and the bond election, and they actually started that on Monday the 18th, I believe, which was yesterday, and started demoing buildings. And Turtles is down. Now, I don't think the old bag lady is, but on that property will be the indoor practice facility.
Okay.
It will start there. It's not going to be a parking lot. Indoor practice facility, soccer dressing rooms, and then the soccer field. So we've got a whole city block that is just north of Solon's that will be a generational project that we probably couldn't have done if it hadn't been for the CARES money.
Yeah, just incredible.
But yes, those are beautiful buildings and longtime memories, and for our community to see start crumbling down.
Yeah,
so
and it's going to be
everything changes.
Everything changes, and we evolve, and it's going to be beautiful when those projects are finished. And of course, it's going to benefit Ponca City Public Schools, and like you said, it's going to benefit the students and the student athletes of Ponca City High School. Now I kind of got ahead of ourselves here.
That's all right.
I want to go back to the superintendent's report. A big part of Shelley Arrott's job of the last 18 months has been staying on top of COVID numbers and updates and mitigation efforts and all of that. And the policy has changed. I know one of the phrases that the last 18 months has you've been known for is as of this 10 seconds.
As of this 10 seconds, this is how it stands. And,
Right.
and that's not one of my favorite parts of my job, you
Right.
know, and it does consume a lot of time. Fortunately, it's not novel to us anymore. We know what to do. We know how to deal with it. We track those numbers. I know exactly how many students we have out, what classrooms might be closed, whatever. But I present a COVID update every month. And we were so hopeful with the beginning of this year to go back to better than normal and the way things looked. And then all of a sudden the Delta variant came rising in. But here's what I can tell you. When we started in August, here's what our graph looks like. I mean, sharp increase and then sharp decrease. And Nurse Webb is our COVID facilitator, and he's really good with Google Documents, and we're still on a downward trend. And what I reported to the board, I report by site, the percentage of students out, and by district. And on Monday, the 11th, we had less than 1% of our staff and students out affected by COVID. Now, Sean, if you think about this, our attendance goal is 95%. We don't even have 5% affected by COVID, and we have had a lot of time. We had about 1%. Now, with that said, the very next week, we're over 1%, like about 1.3%. But bottom line, our trend line is still decreasing. And I talked to our board about that, and there was some hypotheses, you know, as to why things are going down. And I shared some things. More masking with our mask requirement. And, you know, people can opt out of it. Our staff can, our students can. But before the masking requirement, we were about 5 to 10% of our students wearing masks. And now we're up to about 70 to 80. We've only had a small number of students opt out, students and staff, but it's one of those things. If they're not wearing a mask, we have assumed they've opted out. So, but what I can tell you is we're about 70% masking in our secondary sites, but at our elementary sites, it's probably 98% of our students. And that's where the big difference is. The masking has saved us, especially in the elementary classrooms, because they're in the same classroom all day. And we have 25 to 28 students in a class, and the viral load becomes heavy. And if there's a household close contact, there may be 3 household close contacts in one classroom. Well, that's probably 3 likely positives. That's, well, you know, with the Delta variant, it's highly communicable. So the masks, we think, have helped us. More and more of our students and staff are fully vaccinated, so 12 and over do have the possibility of becoming vaccinated, and we see an increase every single day. We can ask, parents call us and tell us, and as far as quarantines go, the Oklahoma State Department of Health exemptions are 14 days after full vaccination, or if they've had COVID within the last 90 days. And Sean, as of our report on Monday, 222 of our staff and students have had COVID since school started, as compared to about 80 at this time last year. So this variant is very highly communicable. So I think that's helped us, that more and more people have tested positive, and then there's some immunity built up, more vaccinations, more masking. Here's one thing that's helped us a lot. Parents are not sending their kids to school if they're symptomatic. That's helped us. And I think just after the summer, people just, it's time to go back to school. And, you know, if they're coughing, if they've lost their sense of taste, their sense of smell. With this variant, there's a lot of nauseousness too. Don't send them to school. We'll provide distance learning and a free lunch to them. So a lot of things have happened. And with that, I recommended changing some of our safety protocols. Now, there are some things that our board has to approve, but they allow our safety committee to determine the protocols. So something that we're going to do that we've done Immediately after that board meeting, we plugged the water fountains right back in. Now, with that said, we're not going to have our kids put their mouth on the water fountain. Let's fill water bottles. But it's time to use those water fountains, and our custodians are going to start cleaning those way more frequently. Another thing, it's okay for lockers to be utilized, and that was a question. Why aren't we utilizing lockers? That's been a site decision to keep kids from congregating, but our passing period is less than 15 minutes, which is the trigger for a close contact. So a lot of sites have opened up that locker usage, and here's what I would tell you, patrons. If you have a student that carries lots of books and a computer and lots of extracurricular gear, talk to the principal. They will assign a locker. So that is back in session. Something that we started today after fall break. We are allowing visitors back in, such as guest speakers. We weren't having guest speakers at the time. We weren't having outside assemblies, so an assembly provider can come back in after fall break. And consultants. We have coaching for different things such as Great Expectation. We're inviting consultants back in. Now, masking and vaccination is preferred, but we cannot require that, and we won't require that. Here's a big one. Our elementary schools are permitted to going back to live assemblies.
Oh, wow.
Morning assemblies.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal, and I kind of watched some this morning. They're still recording them and still doing them live for our parents to see. But we're keeping those assemblies less than 15 minutes, so it will not trigger that close contact trigger. So that's exciting. Some are going to do 2 or 3 days a week, and some are going to do every day. But that's an important bonding time for our kids. So assemblies are coming back open, and we are lifting our capacity limits on our large venues, inside venues, which are the concert hall. And Robson. And if you'll remember, our masking requirement is just in the classroom. It's not passing periods, it's not lunch, it's not on school grounds, it's not during extracurricular activities. In the classroom's compulsory. It's required. We provide distancing in our big venues, and you don't have to attend if there's an issue. It's not required attendance. But Sean, we are having our first concert in 18 months, Monday the 25th.
Yeah.
In the concert hall.
In the concert hall. It's going to be amazing. It's
Can't
going to
wait.
be incredible.
Can't wait.
Well, the superintendent's report, a lot of important information. And I got to wonder, Shelley, and if this has been considered, talking about 98% masking with those students in the elementary schools, how that potentially, not even talking about COVID, but perhaps with flu and things like that, if we're seeing a decrease in those numbers as well because of it.
Well, when we were not masking, we saw an increase.
Okay.
And I will tell you, flu is on the rise. There's a stomach bug on the rise. So we saw more of that, but we're holding down on that at our elementaries because so many are masking. So we know it works.
Very good. Well, the board at the October Board of Education meeting took action on a resolution to the KC Election Board calling the annual election of Board of Education members. What was this all
That's
about?
the K County Election Board, and every year we have a ward that comes open for our board members. And this year we have 2 wards open. We have Ward 2, which is currently held by Nancy Zimmershed, and it's a 5-year term, and her term ends after this year. So Ward 2 will be open, and she can file, and anyone else who lives in that ward, and we'll be glad to answer any questions for our patrons. You have to live in that ward. You have to be a registered voter for at least 6 months in that ward. There's some criteria there. And then another seat, unusual, seat 4 is open too, because we appointed Anna Rowland, or our board appointed Anna Rowland after Dr. Kincaid's passing last year. And anytime there's a board appointment, they have to run at the next scheduled election time. And then they run again when the term expires. So it could be interesting this year, because there will be, if there are 3 candidates or more, there is a primary election in February. If there are only 2 candidates, we go to a general election in April, and that's for each seat. So it just depends on the number of people who are interested in running, how many candidates there are, and the filing period is December 6th through 8th of 2020, and the elections, I'm sorry, we're in 2021. The elections are in 22, so it would be February and April, depending on how many candidates. Let's say we have a primary election in February. There's 3 candidates, and none of the candidates get 50% of the vote.
Right.
Then they go again in the general. So it could
In
be a
April.
number of
Yeah.
combinations. We'll just have to see. It will be determined by the number of candidates we have for each ward.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the Board of Education considered and have implemented new policies. So what exactly are these policies
Well,
about?
we talked about those in September. A lot of our policies changed based on legislation. It's required. A few of our policies have some options, and that's the board's number one job. They write policy and they approve budgets. So we presented those policies in September, and which is required because they are posted on our website. The summaries are, and then we have to take public comments for 30 days. And so we brought those policies back just for approval. And I won't go over the policies. There were many, but our patrons and our community can view those at www.pcps.us. So
good.
they took action and approved all those required policies.
Very nice. Well, we spoke earlier about the Sober Brothers contract for demolition to make room for all of that activity just to the north and of Solon Stadium. And so that project has already started.
It
And
has.
the old Turtles building's already down, and they will continue to do that work, of course, making way for progress. And that is certainly important. The board took action on recognition of events. What events were recognized?
Oh my goodness, there are all kinds of fabulous events that occur in November, and our school puts a huge focus on these events. We have American Education Week. It's November 15th through the 19th, I believe, but it's a time to honor public education and what it does for our children and our communities and our nation. So American Education Week is a week in November, and coinciding with National American Education Week is National Education Support Week, and there's specifically a day, the Wednesday of National American Education Week, we will honor our support employees, and we have 339 support employees. We could not make it without our people. That's anywhere from our classroom assistants to transportation,
Right.
to maintenance, child nutrition. So it's a time to honor our education support. Also, it's National Native American Heritage Month, the entire month of November. And we honor our first Americans who've made significant contributions and who are founders of our land and who were make such an impact on our culture and our society. And we honor American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiians. And we have Title VI people in all of our building, which is our Native American personnel, and they work on focusing on the culture of Native Americans, artwork, languages, the tribes. But we set a huge focus, and we do all kinds of assemblies and bring a more focused awareness on our National Native American Heritage Month during that week. We always have powwows at our sites. Mm-hmm. We didn't last year due to COVID, but
Right.
guess what? Coming back in.
Yes.
So we're excited about that opportunity, and we are proud to honor our Native Americans the entire month of November. Then there's one more celebration. It's Celebrate Freedom Week. And that's the time to honor those who sacrificed for our freedom, mm-hmm. for our countries, and our values, who reinstated and fought for the values of our country. Mm-hmm. And that coincides with Veterans Day. So I believe it is the 7th through the 13th. So we will do Celebrate Freedom activities to honor our veterans that entire week.
Very nice.
Busy month in November.
Well, every time there's a contract for the Ponca City Public Schools, big or small, it goes in front of the school board, of course. And especially when there's a large contract on the table, and that was certainly the case with this agreement with Ward's Air Conditioning, and that was a topic. It had its own line on the agenda.
There were several large contracts. If there's a contract that's over $10,000, it has to have its own line item on the agenda. 10,000 or lower goes on a consent agenda, and those are just typical. And we had some typical large contracts, but a new contract that I wanted to point out was an agreement with Ward's Air Conditioning. Here's the thing, Sean, we probably have, I don't even know how many, 40,000, 50,000 HVAC units.
Wow.
And there are several down at any given time, and one person can't maintain those. So we've got a contract with Ward's Heat and Air, and as needed, they will provide somebody half a day every day to come work on our HVAC units. So that way we'll keep our students cool and warm and everything up and running. But again, with so much progress
Right.
and new facilities and new units, one person, we have one HVAC person
Wow.
in the district, and he just can't do it by himself. So that was a new contract, and we're super excited about that.
Very good. There's a big trip coming up in the summer of 2023. Can you tell us about this? And this required talking about this
Big
agreement
one,
with
yes.
how do I pronounce
Explorica.
that? Explorica. Okay.
It's a travel company, and we had an agreement. The trip was actually supposed to take place last summer, and it was a trip to Spain and all over in that area, and got canceled due to COVID. We didn't
course.
cancel it, it got
Yeah.
canceled. But Explorica is now offering these trips again, and we have a trip planned to Peru the summer of 2023. And it's Miss Carter. She teaches Spanish at the high school, and Ms. Marsh Smith, who teaches English at the high school, are going to be the sponsors. And they start planning and fundraising now. And it's not just for high school kids, it's for any of our PCPS families or staff members.
Oh, that's pretty exciting.
It is.
It was a very busy October Board of Education meeting. Shelley, thank you so much.
Hey, well, thank you for having us and doing this show with us so we can inform our public.
Yes, for sure. That's going to conclude this edition of the Board Wrap-Up Show with Superintendent Shelley Arrott. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, for Ponca City Public Schools. Thank you for watching, and until next time.